Hey everybody, how we doing today? This is the 3-minute late wholesale real estate investing number 229 on by Saha, and this is boy, what is this? This is the 29th day of February 2016, the leap year. Woo! So I would just suggest if you have any things that you don't like to do that you have to do once a year, schedule them for this day. That way you only have to do them every once every 4 years. Anyway, I'm Paul Romero. I am here hanging out in the war room here in Phoenix, Arizona, and my real estate guru business partner here, John Leister, is hanging out with me here this morning on number 228 with the Wholesale Real Estate Investing Show. And John, where are you hanging out from?
Good day, everybody. I'm hanging out from Phoenix, Arizona, bundled up under a blanket of all things. It's starting to get a little warmed up now that the blood's flowing. Paul and I do a hangout every morning at 8 o'clock, and I probably rolled out of bed and straight to this chair just as Paul was sending me the invite, literally. I had no shirt on. I had the lights off. I had just been laying in bed since about 7 o'clock thinking about opportunity. And very excited and getting myself prepped for our hangouts that we do, especially on Monday or NEWOPDAY, one of my favorite days on these hangouts, because we get to talk about, in my opinion, one of the best books on the subject ever written, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And what I love about this book and why we come here every NEWOPDAY to discuss it is because right here, this is our wholesaling system right here. You say, whoa. How to Win Friends and Influence People. What does that have to do with wholesaling real estate, and how is that your system? Well, it has everything to do with wholesale real estate and everything to do with our system for negotiating deals. So with that, welcome to the Hangout, everybody. We're going to have some great content. And just to kind of put a plug in for Wednesday, I promised to kind of put this into action. I believe it was this Wednesday where we're going to actually try to do some live cold calls to get some potential deals live on the web, live on this hangout. Hopefully I don't make a jackass of myself or dial numbers for 30 minutes when no one picks up the phone, because that's something that could happen too. So just throwing a plug in for Wednesday that this is, you want to see this book put into action, hopefully. Come by Wednesday. And with that, welcome to the hangout. Let us know where you're hanging out from. And I'm going to toss this thing back over to Paul, who kick the can, get the ball rolling.
Well, you know what's pretty awesome is that you're actually going to see, wow, wait a second. I just wanted to see something here. Oh, I think I found it. Whoa. Woohoo. Okay. Yeah, you're actually going to see part 3 of this book in action on Wednesday, because we've already gone through parts 1 and 2, which, as once again, just a quick reminder for those who haven't been here or for those who have, just to get caught up on where we're going next. We've already talked about in part 1 the fundamental techniques of handling people. Okay, there's just, if you did nothing more than apply the 3 concepts in part 1 of this book, you would improve your skills immensely. Then, oh crap, I just blew it. Then if you get into part 2 of this book and you start applying these principles of 6 ways to make people like you, all right, you're already applying the fundamental principles, and now you're making people like you right out of the gate. And you start then working into chapter or part 3 of this book, which is how to win people to your way of thinking. You think there might be any importance whatsoever in wholesale real estate to win people over into your way of thinking? Well, if you want a deal, that's the freaking vital important key. If you don't get them over to your way of thinking, you're never going to get a deal out of that thing, because people are what's the word I'm looking for? They're obstinate. They want to be the opposite of you. They don't want to be thinking like you. They want to be argumentative. They want to be thinking like in their own way. They got their own thoughts. Everything that they have up in here is right, and everything that you have up in here is wrong. And that's the way that that's the way these things start out. So you need to know how to win people over into your way of thinking in wholesale real estate if you want to have any success whatsoever. So yeah, how does this book become the wholesale real estate freaking how to do wholesale real estate book? I think that pretty much explains it right there, doesn't it? And here's an interesting thing. The first part, the fundamental techniques, like I said, if you just did those 3 things, there's just 3 fundamental techniques in there, right? Then the second part, 6 ways to make people like you, right? Obviously, there's 6 ways to do that, right? And now we get into part 3, how to win people over into your way of thinking. And we have 12, count them, 12 principles in this area of how to win people over into your way of thinking. Do you think that this might be a very important piece to your success? What do you think, John?
Well, I would think yes, because what this book has done so far is lay the basic fundamental techniques to handle people, show you some ways to get people to like you. So wholesale real estate is all about, and you hear this in any seminar, any guru program, any webinar that's introducing the concept of wholesale real estate, is you got to go out and you got to find motivated sellers. Well, what is a motivated seller? A motivated seller is another person. And like every person that's out there, present company included, yourself included, everybody's tuned into their own frequency. As one of my mentors always says, tuned into their own radio station. And imagine everybody has little antennas like an alien sticking out of their ears. And these antennas are tuned into one frequency, WIIFM, which stands for what's in it for me. Everybody is coming from that point of view. So what is a motivated seller? A motivated seller is a person tuned into the radio station WIIFM, what's in it for me. So when you enter into a negotiation or you go and you're talking to a seller, you have to remember that. And then there's fundamental techniques to handling people. There's certain things to do like smiling, complimenting, using their first name peppered throughout the conversation in a sincere, non-awkward sort of a way, because there's a right and there's a wrong way, right? But it's about dealing with people. So that's why this is our manual, because wholesale real estate is a people business. You're dealing with a motivated seller. What's motivating them? They're in a bad situation where they need money quick, and the only way to get that money is to sell their house at a steep discount. So it's our jobs, really, to make them feel good about it. And that's what this book's all about. So yes, the next section, 12 parts to it, how to win people to your way of thinking, I would say is extremely important. Not just in the great thing about all these concepts we're learning here, it works for any business or any area of your life. You don't need to just influence people when it comes to business, but you have kids, you got to learn how to influence them and build them. Get them to do the things that they need to be doing and that you want them to do. Spouse, friends, everything. Everything is this book pertains to just about everything. So the first section of this book is called You Can't Win an Argument. And that's because people, and I'll kind of quickly paraphrase and I'll toss it over to Paul to kind of break down the meats and potatoes of this chapter. People want to know what's in it for them, right? You can't really win an argument because people are, if you're in an argument with someone, it's what is the cause of that argument? Typically, you think one way, they think the other, and the whole argument is about convincing the other one to think like the other one. There's a way to win an argument. We'll get into that here, but without winning the argument. And you're saying, what in the world? Winning an argument without winning the argument? Yeah, you don't engage in argument. The best way to win an argument, too, is to simply avoid it. And that's what this first section of this is all about.
That kind of goes all the way back to fundamental technique number 1 in the book, which is which is principle number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. So really what that chapter is all about the bottom line is, don't get people against you from the very beginning. Don't piss people off right from the start. Being very amiable in your your dealings with other people is principle number one in the fundamental techniques of not, pissing people off in the first place. And because, I mean, if you piss them off in the first place, that's just one less person. And, and then so if you go into, once you haven't pissed them off and you start to make them like you, now you go over here and we talk about not winning, or, not engaging in an argument. And he starts off telling a little story here about being out to dinner one evening at this event, and this gentleman at his table started telling a story about a question out of the Bible, and he knew without a doubt, and he had an expert on Shakespeare sitting right next to him, so he knew without a doubt that this question that this gentleman was discussing did not come from the Bible, that it actually came from Shakespeare. And so, he took the liberty to step into the middle of this person's talk about his presentation here about this question and how he felt about it, and et cetera, and so on, his little story there, and to challenge this man over, whether or not that this question actually came from the Bible or from Shakespeare. And, they went back and forth a little bit, with the man sticking to his guns, oh, no, it's definitely from the Bible. And, the other guy saying, oh, no, it's definitely from Shakespeare. And them two coming to an agreement that, oh, hey, well, Joe here is an expert on Shakespeare. Let's ask him, right? And so they turn to Joe and they say, Joe, did this question come from the Bible or from Shakespeare? And Joe kicks the man underneath the table as he says, oh, no, this gentleman is right. It did come from the Bible. So this guy knows. It's absolutely, I mean, he's the expert on Shakespeare. He absolutely knows it came from, scene 3, act 5, verse 23 he knows that much, all the way down to which verse it was. He knows for a fact that it came from Shakespeare. But did he stand up and take the side of the gentleman who raised the question, the challenge to this person's intelligence of whether it came to, from the Bible or from, no, he just sided with that person's opinion, even though he knew full well it was incorrect, just to not engage in the argument. And when the guy asks why, I love when he says, when the guy asks why he would do that, and he says, I need my specs here so I can see it better and read it better. He says, we were guests at a festive occasion. Why prove to a man he is wrong? Is that going to make him like you? Why not let him save face? He didn't ask for your opinion. He didn't want it. Why argue with him? Always avoid the acute angle. The man who said that taught me a lesson I'll never forget. I not only had made the storyteller uncomfortable, but had put my friend in an embarrassing situation. See, I mean, not only did he make the person that he challenged uncomfortable, but having an expert sitting right next to him, he ends up putting his friend into an embarrassing situation or an uncomfortable situation. So, how much better would it have been if I had not become argumentative? And that's kind of where they're going with this chapter, just the whole idea of, not, well, as I said right here in the title here, not insulting a person's intelligence. That's it right there. If you don't insult somebody's intelligence, then you're going to just avoid the argument. That person's going to save face. You don't have to, I mean, you can know 100% that they're wrong. You don't necessarily have to point it out that they're wrong. It's like, okay, that's their opinion. And if you look at it from that point of view, well, that's just that person's opinion. I know what the facts are. I know what's real. I can take that, and I can use that, in a way that's going to advance me in my life. And unfortunately, I feel sorry that, that gentleman's not going to be able to learn and grow and step away from his position because he's set in his mindset of where he's at. There's nothing you can do about it. So why encounter it? Why step into it?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great thing. And he kind of that that Paul read out loud, saying how much better it would have been had I not become argumentative. And I mean, that's the overall principle of this chapter, is the only way to get the best of any argument is to simply avoid it, because people are people don't really like to be challenged. Paul and I and a lot of you entrepreneurs out there seeking answers, watching hangouts like this, that enjoy a challenge and hard work and figuring things out and being open and coachable to learning. That's not the majority of people. And quite frankly, even the best of the best, Paul, myself, yourself, no matter how open you are, people still don't like to be argued with. When it's my opinion, when it's your opinion, or you say something or share a story and you source it wrong, like the example here where the guy thought it was a quote from the Bible, but it was a quote from Shakespeare. Why argue with the guy if that's what he thinks? What purpose does arguing solve? Does it make, why people argue? And I've got a friend that, this would make the greatest example of how not to win friends and how not to influence people. How to turn off a room full of strangers and create enemies quick. He likes to argue everything, right or wrong. If it's in his mind that he's right, he's going to challenge and argue. And I've seen him just deteriorate a conversation or a group into the point where everybody's walking away pissed off at each other and no one's in a good mood anymore. But at the core of it, they're all trying to get the F away from this guy. What is the point of being argumentative with somebody? Just so you get the satisfaction and the feel good of, oh, I proved myself right. I'm so good.
Does his name start with an E? Yes.
Yes, it does. See,
that's too funny.
He's a memorable guy, but
right,
not for the right reasons you want to be memorable for.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good point right there. That's a very good point right there. Being a memorable person is something that you want to do. That's a very big part of being successful especially in your network, your negotiations, the people that you deal with on a regular basis in your business, in your real estate business. Not necessarily the seller, but you do want to be memorable to the seller as well too. But really, super importantly, in the people that you deal with on a regular basis, your title people, your real estate agents, your network of people that, like I said, that you work with. You being a memorable person is something that's really important in that area, because they're going to, that brings them to a point of liking you and wanting to do work for you and wanting to get things done for you in that manner. But being a memorable person in that sort of a fashion does the exact opposite. Like I said, it's like, they see you coming across the parking lot and they're like, oh God, here comes that guy again. You know what I mean? Shoot. Susie, tell him I went to lunch and get him the hell out of here. You know what I mean? They don't want to work with you. They don't want to do business with you. Yeah, you're a memorable person, but that's not the right way to be memorable.
Not at all. Not at all. And the point here is that you shouldn't be out there looking for arguments that you can have with people. Like, let's bring it right back to what we're all here for, wholesale real estate. The majority of the people that we deal with that are in a motivating situation, I know that they screwed up. I know that they're making up excuses. I know that they're blaming everybody but the culprit, which is themselves, typically, for ending up in this motivating situation. It's the bank's fault. It's the government's fault. It's Obama's fault. It's everything but themselves' fault. My instinct is to be like, man, I should really correct this person. They're on a bad path of life here, thinking it's everyone else's but their own fault. but what would be the sense of me challenging them? What would be the sense of me arguing with them? I need to make these people feel good about doing business. So if I was to sit there and point out, you know, how ignorant it is for them to blame their situation on the current president of the United States, which I've heard time and time again, as if he has anything to do with you paying your goddamn HOA on time. But anyway, I digress from that. I'm just saying, like, it would be really foolish of me to argue with them and tell them that they're wrong, because they're not coming to me to teach them to point out the fallacy of their ways. They're coming to me for a solution to get out of the problem, which is selling me the house, and I'm getting it at a discount so that it works for me, and they're getting cash the cash they need to get out of their current situation so it works for them. So why argue with them about how they ended up here? It's pointless. It's mute. I don't argue with these people about anything. Even when they tell me, man, that's a really low, cheap offer. You know, why do you have to offer so cheap? I mean, sometimes people want to get argumentative with you because they feel that your offer is lowball. And rather than argue with them, it needs to make sense for you too, Joe. But, you know, it also has to make sense for me. And, you know, maybe I can offer you a little bit money. Let's get into the actual condition of this property here. Tell me a little bit about the property. Maybe I'm wrong, Joe. Maybe there's some more value here. Why don't you tell me what I'm missing? You see what I did there? You know, you don't argue with the people and say, well, my price isn't lowball. Your expectations are too high. You're in a shitty situation you put yourself in, and you need to take this offer. Otherwise, you're going to lose your home. No, wrong. Not the way to do it. You don't argue with people. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. I mean, the concept's very simple.
Well, let's put it in perspective with the book here, and where he goes right on to the next paragraph. The same guy in that same story, he starts talking about how this affected him, and he says, you know, I was inveterate. I don't know what that word means. I'll have to look it up. I was an inveterate arguer. During my youth, I'd argue with my brother under everything under the Milky Way. When I went to college, I studied logic and argumentation and went for debating contests. Talk about being from Missouri. I was born there. I had to be shown, right? Later, I taught debating and argumentation in New York, you know, and ashamed to admit it, I plan to write a book on the subject. Since then, I've listened to, engaged in, and watched the effect of thousands of arguments. As a result of all this, I have come to the conclusion that there's only one way under the heaven to best avoid an argument, and that is to avoid it. You should avoid it as you would rattlesnakes and earthquakes. 9 out of 10 times, an argument ends with each of the contestants more firmly convinced than ever that he's absolutely right. So, you know, and then he goes, you can't win an argument, because if you lose it, you lose it. And if you win it, you lose it. Well, why? Well, suppose you triumph over the other man and shoot his argument full of holes and prove that he is non-compos mentis. In other words, stupid. Then what? You will feel fine. You will feel fine, but what about him? You have made him feel inferior. You have hurt his pride, and he will resent your triumph. And a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So you haven't won the argument at all. You won the argument, but you haven't won anything at all, because all you did was solidify even harder what they thought in the beginning. You know, even though you triumphed over them, all you did was make them feel bad. How do you say? Feel bad and feel inferior, which therefore strengthens the feeling within themselves that, you know what, when you make somebody feel bad and feel inferior, they have to rebuild themselves. And so in this case, with an argument, the only thing they have left to rebuild from is to re-solidify the argument that they just lost in their own mind. So you make them even more even more, stuck in their way of that information than when you even started the argument. That's a really cool way that he writes that out.
Absolutely. I just want to throw in, because you brought up at the beginning of the paragraph you read, that Dale Carnegie, the author of this book, he was an inveterate arguer, and the word inveterate, I had to look it up here myself, is having a particular habit, activity, or interest that is long established and unlikely to change. Well, you can change if you're aware of it. So are you an inveterate arguer yourself? Do you always feel that it's your duty to point out to people whenever they're wrong? Or are you an inveterate debater? You're always going out there to look for the opportunity to get into an argument, like the nameless person that starts with the letter E. It's unbelievable how disliked and that personality is. If you've got that personality where you like to argue with everybody over anything just to always prove right, number one, you probably got low self-esteem, because why else do you feel it's so necessary to prove everybody else wrong? But the point I'm trying to make here is that, hey, think about, I like that word inveterate because of what it says there, and how many habits. It got my mind going off in a slightly other direction. But think about that this week. What are some of your habits that are unlikely to change? What's some of the patterns you've used over the years when dealing with other people? And do you have the results that you really want? Like, do you have the quality good friends that you want? Do you have the relationships? Do you have the admiration of others? And if you're not where you want to be, well, think about the reason why. What are your habits? What are your inveterate habits that you have when it comes to dealing with other people? And this hangout, this book, is an opportunity for once and for all to change your life, change your habits, change your way of dealing with other people, and become a well-liked person, and not just for business, but on your personal, your social life, and your network, and your friends. I mean, this book is I think critical, mandatory reading. I wish this book was introduced to me in kindergarten. But
Yeah.
Hence it's not. So with that, I'm going to toss it back over to you, Paul. I do see we're at 9 o'clock.
I know, that's crazy how fast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that, what you just said there about the inveterate habits there of people, and coupling, the whole idea of becoming aware that you have an inveterate habit is the first step. And this book right here is obviously some very, very good solutions to overcoming some inveterate habits. But I would highly suggest that people couple the reading of this book in with T. Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which goes into a little bit further about how and why we have these inveterate habits, and sort of, a little bit more into how and why to apply ways to overcome them as well too. So these are great solutions to those problems inside this book, but there's another step into actually overcoming those problems, or these habits. And I think you can really get, if you coupled that book with this book in reading at the same time, especially the first 49 pages of that book, I think you would really be able to take some positive steps in growing into the person that's going to actually be able to become successful in the negotiation area of wholesale real estate. And with that, everybody, we have covered 2 pages out of 8 on this first this first chapter in part 3. You can't win an argument. So I have a feeling we're going to be on this a little bit more next NEWOP Day. And until then, we'll be back here on Wisdom Wednesday. As John said, you're not going to want to miss this show. It's going to be really, really awesome, of applying some of these techniques live, in person, on a phone call, totally, out of the blue, just going to pick a random person and make a phone call. It's going to be the first connection to this person, and we're just going to see how it goes. and just show you some of the power behind, being able to apply these concepts to an actual conversation. So you want to give us the prayer, John, and close this thing out?
Yes. I ask, O universe, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom with which to make better use of the riches that have been given to me at birth, consisting in the power to control and direct my own mind to whatever ends I may desire. So today, I'm going to think about that word inveterate and think about what habits I have that have been long established that aren't doing me any good, and I'm going to ask for wisdom to break them. So with that, go out and have a great day. I'm excited about Wednesday. Again, I'm going to be picking up this little thing because the gold nuggets are in the phone, and I'm going to make a live phone call and hopefully not make an ass of myself. So we'll see you all here on Wednesday.
Yes, word of the day, inveterate.